I'm not a guru. There's nothing special about me. I am just able to put it all together. And I think anybody can put it together as long as they have the information and the understanding. What took me 3 decades was not being able to be a genius. What took me 3 decades was to discover principles that are operating in the market and then try to work out how you could make that principle tell you something about what the market's likely going to do under a given set of conditions. That's why I always throw that in there, because those conditions are part of those 3 dimensions that have to be taken into account, that you already are taking into account in every other thing that you do. You may not even be conscious of it, right? So you go to somebody's selling their house and you walk in and you feel nice, open, airy thing, nice large windows, and it feels really nice because you're measuring the space, the longitudinal, latitudinal, depth, everything, height, you're measuring all that, and it connects with you. You're putting it all together and saying, yeah, I like that. Or the house maybe is too small, or the bathroom's too small, or the hallways are really narrow, right? We're doing it all the time. I'm just telling you to bring it over to the market and understand that the market is like everything else. It is in 3 dimensions. And it is like everything else. It can be pixelated all the way down to very, very small levels. And if you want to improve what your understanding is, you can do it by starting to see the market from a multiple way of viewing it so that you're not missing information about what that particular pixelated view is telling you. If you can put that together a little bit, it can make a dramatic difference. What took me so long was getting the understanding of principles by which the market is operating. And then, even then, it took quite a while to be able to say, even though I could forecast it, believe me, and I know many of you know this, having a forecast and trading successfully that forecast are 2 mother of Jesus different skills. They are completely different skills. Many people would say, well, hey, if you can forecast the market's going to do this or that, you should have $1 million. You know, once I was at a restaurant eating with Penn from Penn and Teller. And I think I told the story once. I didn't plan on eating with Penn, but he had met the girl that I was eating with, who was just a friend, but she was, you know, she's a nice looking girl. She was somewhere and he tried to pick up on her, and she says, well, I'm eating dinner tonight. You know, she was a little starstruck. It's Penn from Penn and Teller with her friend, me, and we're eating over at this restaurant. Why don't you come over if you want to come there? And he came. So he and I sat and talked. And this is many, many years ago. This is like in the 90s. And he said, he says, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm working with markets, you know, stock market, commodity markets, and so on. And he said, well, so then you're basically gambling. And I said, no, I don't think so. I said, I'm not as good as I'd like to be at it, but I really don't view it as gambling because I believe the markets, even back then, I told him, I don't think they're random. And whatever my knowledge level at the time was, and I expressed it. And he says, well, if you could really do what you're saying, you would be the richest man on the planet. So he was making the wrong assumption that if you can forecast a large move, that is equivalent to you being able to trade it, right? So let's just give you just a quick little example here. Sorry, you got me going today, or I got me going today, or I need my medication. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to show you right here. Let's just use this as an example. Here's Amazon. Here's a yearly chart of Amazon. Okay. So if you had, you know, if somebody says right here, let's just blow it up here. If somebody said right here, go long Amazon, and we break it down, let's say to a quarterly chart even, so you can really see what's going on here. You know as well as I do that anybody who told you or me to buy it right here, let's say you bought it right at the lows. By the time it got here, you've already got a pretty sizable percentage gain. When it got here, you're screaming, you can't even go to sleep at night. and finally you take your position off. In most cases, that's how most people would trade. None of them are in for the rest of all this, even though they had the forecast for that. They just can't do it. They just can't stay with the position. It drives them crazy. That's why having a forecast and trading the forecast are two distinctly different things. So it took me a long time to be able to find a way to live with myself in a trade where the move was large, it was distant, and be able to have a way to literally be able to do it without getting flushed out, and even without being flushed out, getting to the point where you just have to get out. You just can't take it anymore. I've got enough. To the guy who makes 2 points, when you put him in a 10-point trade, he can't do that because that's 500% more than what he normally gets. He just can't emotionally stay there for that. If he gets double what he normally gets, he's running for the hills. This is real stuff. This is how people think. So, if I go to the gym and I lift 30 pounds and somebody said, here, I want you to lift 300 pounds, which is 10 times 30, I can't do it. It's like that with the mental as well. So it does take time and it does take practice, even when you get the skill set down, to be able of understanding the nature of the market, to be able to trade it. And so you do go through a period where you're getting out every time you want to get out, and then you find yourself wanting to get back in because it's going to run further. And before you know it, you say, why don't I just stay in for the whole bloody thing? It takes some time to get to that, to really be able to say, why don't I just stay in for the whole bloody thing? It takes practice and it takes time. A lot of people say to me, I really want to, quit my job and just trade for a living. And many of you may have said that, not to me necessarily, but we've all probably said that at some point. And what I have found is interesting about people that say that is when I say to them, listen, do you have a job? And they say, yes, I have a job. I say, what if I told you that every time you got paid, here's your paycheck, here's your wages. Now, in order to keep them, you have to go place a bet with them. And I don't like to turn this into a gambling analogy, but let me just do it just for the sake of our argument. Would you want to gamble every single time whatever wages you just got? I don't think so. You've got bills to pay. You've got things you've got to do with that money. You're not going to just go to the casino and gamble it. Now, I don't consider trading gambling. I do consider it gambling when you don't have knowledge. As a matter of fact, I think it's worse than gambling. I think that people would do better at gambling than they would gambling in the markets. I think when you gamble in the markets, you tend to do worse than you would do if you were actually gambling here in Las Vegas. Having said that, the people who get a paycheck, they don't want to risk their paycheck. You don't want to risk your paycheck, and every time you get it, you have to put it up to try to make it grow again. Well, that's what happens when you're trading or investing. You're going to have to put some of those gains, if not a chunk of them, back up in order to be in another trade. So there is that emotional part that you're always putting your money at risk. But when you get to a certain level, instead of that being a problem, you're actually enthusiastic about taking a portion of your gains and putting that up for another trade, because you know what you're looking for. You know that they're going to give it to you if you just wait. You know that the market is going to show you something really easy and obvious. So all of these issues that come up in the world of forecasting and then converting that into trading all get resolved just with a kind of maturity that just happens over time. You move away from chasing points per day. You move away from bragging to your friends. You move away from everything that we've all done. And you start really realizing that you can do this. And it's almost like having a car fast enough to beat everybody from the 0 to 60, right? When I was younger and I had fast cars, I just wanted to show everybody I could beat them. Didn't matter if they were racing or not. I could be next to like an old lady. I considered it a win. If I, zipped on the accelerator and got out of there and I beat her, she wasn't even racing. That's how it is with people when they're young and trading. Later, you're driving a car that actually can beat everybody. And because you know it, you don't have the need to keep showing it. That just kind of falls away. Now, if there's a guy next to you and he's really picking a fight, yeah, you're going to show him and you're going to show him good, right? But other than that, you're not out picking a fight, even though you're driving the fastest car, let's just say. So in a very real sense, there is a maturity that you get to where you're not proving anything anymore, and you're not proving anything to yourself. You know what you're doing, and you're waiting for those opportunities, and you're enthusiastic because you know that the market is going to give you a really easy and obvious thing if you'll just wait. And that's what I do. And you can wait, and you can do it on shorter term time frames. You can do it on longer term. And after a while, the whole issue of having to put your paycheck, so to speak, to work is your pleasure in life. That actually becomes your pleasure in life, to invest in something that you understand that you're doing in order to grow that capital. So from one level, it doesn't look like you would ever want to risk the money that you're earning. From another level, with higher knowledge, you absolutely are looking forward to doing that. It all depends on your level. So there really is a kind of maturity that happens over a long period of time. And I'm not speaking down to anybody in saying that. I'm not even speaking really about myself. I'm just speaking from myself about experiences that I've had. And you do get to a point where you're very calm. You're not thinking about making money. You're not thinking about proving to yourself that you can still make money. You're not thinking about lunch afterwards where you're going to tell your friends that you made money. All of that has fallen away. And you really just understand that there's a reality to the nature of the market, and it's going to show you certain things that make it really obvious what it's going to do. And you're just going to wait until you can see that. And after a while, you could have made $10,000 and go have lunch with your friends and not even think once about saying anything about it. That's how far away from where many of us are now that you can go to. You can actually, it's nothing but a thing now. You just understand what you're doing. If somebody asks you, you can say, yeah, I had a really good day, made $10,000. But you're not shoving it in people's faces, because that's just another way to prove to yourself that you're doing it, and all that has fallen away. You're no longer on that path.